On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers have their most impressive win of the season so far, throttling the Detroit Pistons on Monday night. We'll talk about everything we saw, from great defense, another stellar performance from Donovan Mitchell, and even Sam Merrill's injury on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And welcome to another edition of Locked On Cavs. You can find this podcast anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Please do us a favor. Make sure you're subscribed on the platform of your preference. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, because we're there too, make sure you hit that thumbs up button as we get started here. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Cleveland Cavaliers got their third win of the season on Monday night, defeating the Detroit Pistons 116-95 in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena. I was there. That's why my background is different. I am in a hotel in downtown Detroit doing this podcast right now, so that's why I don't have my normal backdrop. The story of this game to me was the way the Cavaliers played defensively. And I think it's fair to say that has been a focus of the season so far. And I think that's what the focus has to be, right? Darius Garland hasn't played yet this season. Max Strus hasn't played yet this season. Darius is obviously an offense-first player. I don't know that I would call Max an offense-first player. I do think he's a pretty balanced player. But with what the Cavs have at their disposal right now, I think that they need to be a team that leans into a defensive identity. I think that is the side of the floor where they need to build things up. I thought it was okay on opening night. I thought it was okay at times against Brooklyn on Friday night. I thought it was better on Sunday. And then Monday night in Detroit, I thought was far and away the best defensive performance that the Cavs have had in their first four games. I thought DeAndre Hunter did a fantastic job on Cunningham. I thought Jaylon Tyson did some good things defensively. And I want to talk about Hunter in a minute because the impact that he had defensively was very, very important. But I do think that we are starting to see the defensive impact that the Cavs can have when they pressure full court. I didn't think that even when the Pistons at the start of this game, because offensively they weren't bad at the start, like the first 6 minutes, they were okay. They hung in there with the Cavs. Like the Cavs were leading, I think 24-22, 6 minutes into the game. And then they closed out the first quarter on an 11-0 run. And Or maybe the Pistons might have been leading 23-22, whatever it was like an 11-0 run to end the first quarter, which was fueled by defense because I didn't think the Cavs offensively were all that great. Like the Cavs, it was weird because this was obviously the second game on a back-to-back. It was the third game in 4 nights. Those 3 games have been in 3 different cities. Now, they've been in the same time zone, which I think might be a bigger deal, but they've been in 3 different cities in 4 nights playing 3 different teams. And those things are all important. And typically you see the effect of that on the floor. I thought offensively, they kind of looked like a team that maybe needed a little bit of juice, that looked a little tired, that looked like they were playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. But defensively, they looked fresh. Defensively, they looked like they had the required intensity. And that to me is one of the impressive things. And if you look at Detroit, too, because this was the second night of a back-to-back for the Pistons, they played on Sunday at home against the Celtics. Now, the Pistons had a little bit of a rest advantage because they didn't have to travel. And, I mean, travel from Cleveland to Detroit is maybe the easiest in the NBA. It is a 16-minute flight from Cleveland Hopkins to Detroit's airport. So that necessarily isn't the biggest deal, but the Pistons did play earlier on Sunday. So their back-to-back was just like a little bit more manageable. I don't think it matters all that much. But the fact that the Cavs were able to have the energy and the impact that they did defensively, I thought was really important, especially when you consider that the team was even more shorthanded on Monday night because we know Darius Garland not playing yet. We know Max Strus not playing yet, not going to play for a while. Lonzo Ball did not play in this game as part of his resting plan or his injury management plan is probably a better way to term it, where he's not going to, at least at the start of the season, he's not going to be playing both ends of a back-to-back. He played on Sunday at home against the Bucks, did not play Monday in Detroit. So the Cavs were down a few guys, but they still had the defensive energy that they needed. Like that to me was the thing that stuck out. I do think that we are now starting to see some of the effects. And maybe this was more glaring because, like I said, for the Pistons, it was a second night of a back-to-back for them too. But I think we're starting to see the effect of what the Cavs picking up opponents 94 feet away from the basket can do. I didn't think Detroit ever looked comfortable offensively. I didn't think that they ever were able to find a rhythm. As I said, they had a good first 6 minutes of the game, but even then they didn't look comfortable. It looked like, okay, they're just making shots, and the Cavs were giving up a few too many corner threes. And I do think if there's one thing to really point at defensively, the Cavs are not doing well. I think opponents are generating a few too many corner threes. And Detroit did that. They just don't necessarily have a ton of shooters that are capable of making them. But overall, the Cavs defense was super impressive. They forced 25 Detroit turnovers on the game. That to me is the stat that told the game because rebounding was fine. I think the rebounding effort was better, but the Pistons shot 38% from the floor and had 25 turnovers. Cade Cunningham, right? DeAndre Hunter had that assignment for a good portion of the night. Cade Cunningham was 3 of 14 from the floor. He had 12 points. He had 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 turnovers. He was forced into more turnovers than he had assists. When that happens, when that kind of game is had by Detroit's star player in Cade, who is one of the best young players in basketball, right? Cade Cunningham, an all-star last year, an all-NBA player last year. He's a terrific young guard. He's one of the best young point guards in basketball. DeAndre Hunter just made life miserable for him. Jaylon Tyson did a very good job defending him. The Cavs did a great job on him, and I thought because of that, you really started to see the effects elsewhere. Jalen Duren didn't necessarily have a great game coming off the bench. Isaiah Stewart had a terrible game. He was 1 of 9 from the floor, minus 30. And the Pistons are a team that because they have some nice young talent, and I don't know if Asar Thompson got hurt or if it was just because he was in foul trouble, but he only played 15 minutes for the Pistons. But this is a team that is going to go as Cade Cunningham goes, right? If he has a bad game, it's really, really difficult for the Pistons to find a way to win, especially when some of their other guys are out. Karis LeVert did not play in this game for the Pistons because of a hamstring injury. Marcus Sasser didn't play. Jaden Ivey is out because of a knee surgery. So the Pistons are not necessarily a full version of themselves right now, and we can obviously say the same thing for the Cavs without Garland, without Strus, without Lonzo Ball. And I would argue the Cavs injuries are more detrimental to who they want to be because they're actually missing an all-star right now. But I look at this and say, well, if Cade Cunningham doesn't have a good game, what is the Pistons' blueprint for winning? And I don't necessarily know how to find it, but that tells me, okay, it's very, very important to shut down Cade Cunningham, to do a good job defensively. And the Cavs did a great job in that area. DeAndre Hunter deserves a lot of credit. I thought Evan Mobley defensively was very good. I thought Jarrett Allen defensively was very good. 1 through 5 in the starting lineup, I thought all 5 guys had good defensive games. That includes Donovan Mitchell. I thought he did some really good things defensively. And, no one's ever going to confuse him with an all-defense caliber player. But I thought he was really good on that. And we will talk about what he did offensively in this game, too, coming up in a little bit. But overall, this was the blueprint for who the Cavs want to be defensively. They want to be a team that tires opponents out on that end of the floor. And one of the things that I asked after the game was to Jarrett Allen, where do you see the effects of the guards really hounding opponents for 94 feet? Because the Cavs can't do this every single possession. And I do think it's a tough thing to do, especially when they're shorthanded, right? Having Sam Merrill in the starting lineup kind of means he can't be somebody that pressures 94 feet every single possession. Now, he can still do it at times, and I think he does a good job of it. But it's tough to do it every single possession for him because he's in a different role than he will be when Darius Garland gets back, when Max Strus gets back. Now, I only know because of his injury, he only played 18 minutes in this game as opposed to the 30 minutes that he played against Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday night. But he can't necessarily do that. The guys that can do that, the Jaylon Tysons of the world, the Craig Porter Jr.'s of the world, Tyrese Proctor when he gets in there, those guys can have that sort of impact. And I think that is why in the second quarter, the Pistons, I don't know that they necessarily completely ran out of gas in that second quarter, but they, from the 4-minute mark right around the 4-minute mark, not 4 minutes exactly, but right around the 4-minute mark, the Pistons made a basket. I don't remember who it was. Doesn't matter. They didn't make another field goal until the 5-minute mark of the second quarter. Detroit went 11 minutes of actual NBA game time without making a basket against the Cavs defense. That to me is the stat of this game. That to me was the most impressive thing that the Cavs did all night long, was that stretch. And the Cavs offense, as I said, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. It's not like the Cavs scored 40 points in that 11-minute stretch. Like they scored 33 in the first quarter. They scored 30 in the second quarter. They did not have a 40-point quarter in this game, which to me, like, is the barometer for if the Cavs are rolling offensively, they will have a 40-point quarter in a game. And the Cavs didn't have anything close to that. But defensively, Detroit didn't have a 30-point quarter. And that, to me, is the sign that this team is leaning into a defensive identity. And that is going to be something that's very, very important, because this team last year, for as much as they wanted to talk about, we are a defense first team, that is the end of the floor that matters the most. And you can say that, and most teams are going to say that. But the reality was the Cavs had the number 1 offense in basketball last year. They had the number 2 offense in NBA history last year. They had the number 8 defense. They were fine defensively. They were good defensively. But I don't think they were great defensively. I think that this year, the Cavs have a blueprint to be better defensively. And I'm not predicting that they're going to be the top defense in the league. I don't think that's going to be the case. But I do think that they will be a better defensive team this year than they were last year. And ultimately, because all of this is about the postseason. All of this is about getting to the playoffs and proving that they can win on that stage. They need to be a better defensive team in order to do that. And nights like this, I think, are really, really good building blocks towards being able to do that in April, May, and June. I think that is the thing. The biggest thing to take away from this game is how good they were on that end of the floor and how they can now start to tap into that identity a little bit. And this is something that when the Cavs talk about building the right habits, I don't look at it on offense. I think they know what they're doing offensively. Even on nights where it doesn't look great, and I don't think it's fair to judge them offensively whatsoever until they get the full version of Darius Garland back, just because guys are in different roles and, they're still going to have nights where they're good. They're maybe not going to have as many nights where they're great without Garland, because I think his absence has really shown how important he is to this team on that end of the floor. But I think they can build a defensive identity. And I think that should be the number 1 goal for this team in the first part of the season. Now, I mentioned Donovan Mitchell. He had a great game. He's played very, very well at the start of this season. I think he's at the point where he has become an underrated superstar. And I'll tell you why next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Monday Night Football went, I believe, the way that I thought it would go, because Kansas City covered the spread in that game, but the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you missed the start of the game, like maybe you did watching the Cavs on Monday night, maybe you were trying to find where the game was and you couldn't find it, and boom, halfway through the first quarter, you finally get the game on TV, but you hadn't placed a bet yet. You don't know what's going on. But with FanDuel, you can bet the game after it's already started, because if you miss the start of the game, maybe you just want to ride a hot hand like Donovan Mitchell had on Monday night. FanDuel has it all. They've got live bets from everything who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. The NBA season officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total and complete headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout. It can be easy to get frustrated. I've been frustrated before. I'm sure you have been frustrated before, because all you want to do is be there and cheer on your favorite team. That's where Game Time comes in, because they're the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and most importantly, stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off with Game Time. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, and thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. Donovan Mitchell had another fantastic game against the Detroit Pistons on Monday night. This comes on the heel of not necessarily a great game against Milwaukee on Sunday, but he did make the plays that were required down the stretch to win that game for the Cavaliers, even though he only had like 24 points and wasn't super efficient. But this was a game that I didn't feel like the Cavs played great on the offensive end of the floor. They only shot 46% from the field. They were only 11 of 35 from three. And those are, I do think, for as impressed as I was with the defensive effort, I think that this was a team that was a little low on energy, with it being the second night of a back-to-back, with it being the third game in 4 nights. And those are things that are fair to expect. Like, that is going to be part of just a Monday night in October when you played on Sunday. That's how it's going to go sometimes. So I thought that we saw that on the offensive end of the floor. And I thought that, that makes sense when guys are not necessarily hitting shots. DeAndre Hunter, 2 of 6 from 3. Evan Mobley, who I, again, wasn't super impressed with, and he still finishes with 15 points on 50% shooting, 11 boards, 5 assists, a steal, 3 blocks. Like, still filled up the stat sheet, made one. And, oh, by the way, it was a plus 27. But Donovan Mitchell was the one guy that just looked really good offensively. He was 13 of 18 from the floor. He had 35 points, was 2 of 4 from 3, so he was getting to the basket. 14 of his shots were not three-pointers, which is not necessarily the ratio we're used to seeing Donovan Mitchell have, right? Like, we're used to thinking, he's probably going to take 7, 8, 9 threes a game. He's going to get to the basket 9, 10, 11 times, and that's going to be his shot diet. But that's not what it was on Monday night. He was getting to the rim repeatedly, and the Pistons just had no answer for him. Like, Asar Thompson, very good defender. One of the best defenders, I think, in basketball. Somebody that, it's hard for me to say that anybody other than Victor Wembanyama is going to be a future all-defensive player of the year winner. Like, it's hard for me to say. But Asar Thompson he's one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. And there were a couple of possessions, certainly, where Asar got the better of Donovan defensively. But for the most part, he couldn't do anything. Like, there was a drive, there was a sequence in the second half. It was back-to-back possessions. And this is kind of, to me, the sequence that ended the game. And it came with 6.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And the first possession, Donovan gets the ball, and he just absolutely shakes Asar Thompson with an in-and-out dribble. Gets to the rim, hits a floater over Jaylon Tyson. The next possession down, and then Duncan Robinson, I believe, missed a 3 on the other end in between. So Mitchell gets on the break, and he goes at Cade Cunningham, hits him with that power dribble into the over-the-top gather that to me is Donovan's signature move. Hits a floater from 12 feet. That gives him 22 points on the night. The Cavs end up going up by 30 at that point. JB Bickerstaff has to call them out. Like, the game is just over at that point because Donovan Mitchell said it was over at that point. He finished with 35 points. As I said, on 13 of 18 from the floor, 2 of 4 from 3, 7 of 8 at the line. He was at plus 38 in 29 and a half minutes. I don't know that I don't think Donovan Mitchell gets enough credit. And I don't want to do the thing where we talk about where he ranks. And, we at Locked On did our top 100, and I'm sure I voted Donovan Mitchell higher than anybody else because I voted him 5th. Like, I had Giannis, Jokic, SGA, and Luka, not in that order because I know I had Jokic first. But then I thought, there's no clear number 5 guy right now. I think it's a lot of guys that are in a conversation for it. And I just think that what Donovan has done, to me, has been so impressive. And because he's not had the postseason success that you would typically expect a player of his caliber to have, I don't think he gets the credit for how good he actually is. Like, he carried the Cavaliers offensively tonight. And Jared Allen was good too, but Jared Allen is not somebody that's going to create looks for himself. Like, he's going to need help from others. And the Cavs, maybe they win this game if Donovan doesn't have a great night just because of how good they were defensively. They were dominant on that end of the floor. But offensively, they were carried by a very, very efficient Donovan Mitchell. And that should not be lost on people, just how good he is. And I think that he is somebody that at times, I'm not saying by Cavs fans, I'm not saying by anybody locally, because I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people locally recognize just how great Donovan is. But I think at times nationally, Donovan doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And he's probably not going to get the credit he deserves until the Cavs get to the conference finals or the NBA finals and he wins on that stage. But it's so impressive to me what he's been able to do night in, night out. He's played 4 games this year, 31 points, 35 points, 24 points, but had some really big buckets down the stretch, 35 points on super efficient shooting. Donovan is just like, he is a superstar. To me, there's no question that he's one of the 10 best players in basketball. And I just don't know that he necessarily gets talked about the way that guys of that stature typically get talked about. He shows up every night, does his job. He does it better than a lot of other people. And I just think that is, he belongs, I think, in maybe some conversations that he's not necessarily always a part of. And hey, it's only 4 games into the season. And ultimately, I don't think this is something Donovan cares about a ton. I don't think this is something the Cavs care about a ton, because they have the bigger picture in mind. They have winning in the postseason in mind. And that ultimately is what matters. But it was really hard for me to sit there inside Little Caesars Arena on Monday night and be anything other than just incredibly impressed with the type of performance that Donovan Mitchell put on, because it seems to be that's all this guy does. Like, he's a gamer. He shows up. He's one of the best players in the world. And I just hope that if you're a Cavs fan watching, listening to this, I really hope that you don't take how good Donovan Mitchell is for granted. Now, there was one other guy that I thought did a really, really good job in an area you might not expect on Monday. We're going to talk about that, plus Sam Merrill's injury, what I know there, and just how it could shape up next right here on Locked on Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is a unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, most importantly, control. Rippling helps to remove the bottlenecks and busy work that slow teams down, because you don't want that to happen. You want your team to be as efficient as possible, and everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's easy to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything that they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill in the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. So learn more at Rippling, rippling.com/lockedonnba. Again, rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, investments, it can be easy to lose track of everything that you're worth. And if you don't know what you're worth, I'm willing to bet you're leaving money on the table. I don't want to leave money on the table. I don't want you to leave money on the table. That's why there's Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in a clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It can help you organize accounts, track spending, get a better handle on your investments, and you never have to touch a spreadsheet. That's for the nerds. That's not for you. Monarch will handle it. You can review everything with your partner if you've got that special someone, so you can see your shared goals, make better financial decisions together. What's more romantic than that? Probably nothing. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDON NBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. Again, monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked on Cavs your first listen. Thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen every single day. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. I was very impressed with DeAndre Hunter. I already talked about him defensively. Offensively, he wasn't the most efficient guy. 4 of 11, finished with 13 points, just 2 of 6 from 3. Nothing necessarily to write home about, I don't think, in the scoring department. but he had a career high 6 assists. And that sounds kind of funny, right? Like DeAndre Hunter has been in the NBA for quite some time. How has he never had a game where he's had 6 assists before? And part of it's the role that he's been in. He's been in more of a finishing role than a creator role, I think, throughout his career, especially playing alongside Trae Young in Atlanta for as long as he did. But I thought it was really impressive the way that he handled that. And this was the first game this season. And yes, very, very small sample size, because everything is small sample size right now. But this was the first game of the season where the first action of the game was not run for Evan Mobley. Like, think back to the Knicks game, who took the first shot. Think back to the game against the Nets, who took the first shot. The game against the Bucks, the first action was to Evan Mobley. The first possession was a fast break possession, so I'm not counting that. But this one was, the Cavs won the tip, and they set up a pick and roll between DeAndre Hunter and Jared Allen, and it ends with Hunter throwing a lob to Allen. That's not something we're used to seeing. We're not used to seeing DeAndre Hunter as a playmaker. He had 5 assists in the first quarter alone, which, coming into tonight, he had his career high for assists in a game was just 5. So that is something. It's like, okay, maybe he's taking a step in that direction. Like, is he growing in that area? I think we're going to need to see a little bit more before we say, yes, DeAndre Hunter, lead decision maker, secondary creator, that you want to be able to do all those things. But you would like to, if you're the Cavs, be able to have that at your disposal. Because I do think one of the things that we learned, not just like, this is not a Cavs specific thing, this is just an NBA specific thing. The more creators you have, the more guys that are capable of dribbling and creating for others, as well as finishing on their own. And hey, what do you know? That means you're a good basketball player. But the better off you're going to be in the postseason. There's going to be a game in April, May, or June where the Cavs are going to need DeAndre Hunter to not only score the ball efficiently, but also be able to help others get going. Because there are going to be some teams that are going to load up on Darius Garland. They're going to load up on Donovan Mitchell. They're going to load up on Evan Mobley. DeAndre Hunter can be the antidote to that. And I think that watching him do this, and it's more necessary for him to do this because no Darius, no Lonzo Ball in this one, obviously no Max Strus. Like, the Cavs are short on those secondary creators, and Lonzo and Darius obviously are primary creators and not secondary creators. But I do think that DeAndre being able to do this, I should say, is a really, really good sign. I thought that was one of the bright spots in this game for the Cavs, and that'll be a thing that I'm very interested to see if that's able to keep up. Now, I mentioned Sam Merrill a little bit earlier. He had 11 points, 4 of 7 from the field, made 3 threes again. He looked really, really good. He only played 18 minutes because he had a right hip contusion. And Kenny Atkinson said he was in quite a bit of pain. And for Sam to not come back in a game, it has to be painful. Like, Kenny basically talked about Sam as one of the tough players on this team. And I do get that sense from Sam. He was in the locker room after the game. It appeared as if he was getting some sort of treatment on his hip, like maybe it's a stim unit. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but he had a medical device on him trying to, I would imagine, get that hip better. We'll see if he misses time. The thing that I think is that the Cavs are going to be conservative with injuries. Like, we saw DeAndre Hunter go through some pretty heavy workouts in New York before he played on Sunday. We have seen Darius Garland go through some pretty heavy workouts. And I don't know if DeAndre could have played before Sunday. He looked to me before Sunday like a guy capable of playing. I don't know if Darius Garland could play right now. But I do think that the Cavs this year, knowing what their goal is, knowing what this entire season is about for them, I do think that the Cavs are going to be a team that is conservative in that realm. They're going to be a team that if you're not close to 100%, you're probably not going to play. So maybe this means Sam misses a little bit of time. What does that mean for the Cavs? I think it would mean a bigger role for Jaylon Tyson. I think that would mean a bigger role for Craig Porter Jr. I think that would mean a bigger role for Tyrese Proctor. And that, to me, is a good and bad thing, because the Cavs need those guys to be prepared. They do. They need Craig Porter Jr. to be ready to play postseason minutes. They need Jaylon Tyson to be ready to contribute in the playoffs. They need Tyrese Proctor, who I thought struggled in this game. They need him to turn into an NBA player. They need those guys to get that experience. But they also need to build good habits as a team, as a group that is going to be playing in the postseason. Like, for as good as I think Tyrese Proctor is going to be this year, not this year, but as a basketball player, if he is giving them significant minutes in the postseason, he either became awesome or something went wrong somewhere else. And they need him to be prepared, but they need the group to be prepared too. And it's one thing for Sam to miss some time, but to miss some time while Darius is also out, while Max is also out. Like, the Cavs they've got good depth. And that is, I think, a very strong part of this team right now. But they need that depth because 2 of their top 6 players are out for who knows how long. Like, we don't know when Darius Garland's going to be back. I don't think it's far off into the future, but we still don't know when he's going to make a season debut. We don't know when Max Strus is going to be back. I do think that's far off into the future. As I've said many times, I would be surprised if he plays before the calendar flips to 2026. But the Cavs, because those guys are out, they're just at the point where they are beat up in a lot of spots. And that, yes, puts more onus onto some of the younger guys that I mentioned. But the other dangerous thing is it puts more on Donovan Mitchell's plate. And that is not the thing you want to do, because Donovan needs to be fresh. He needs to be healthy. He needs to be the best version of himself when the playoffs arrive too. And the healthier the rest of the group is, I think the better that'll be, not only for the rest of the group, but for Donovan as well. So we'll see what happens with Sam's hip. The Cavs are obviously off on Tuesday. They're back in action on Wednesday in Boston against the Celtics. That will be the first game this year I am not at. I'm not going to Boston as part of this trip. I'm heading back to Cleveland on Tuesday after this. I will be at the game on Friday at home against Toronto. So very excited to, it's been great so far. I've watched all 4 games in person. It's been a great start to the season. I love getting to do this, and I get to do this because of you guys. Everyone that subscribes, both here and at my Substack, make trips like this one possible. And I'm very thankful for that. And I hope that you guys enjoy the content that comes out of it. So without anything else from me, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Please do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcast. Hit that thumbs up button if you're on YouTube, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And I will be back tomorrow talking more about the 3-1 Cleveland Cavaliers.